Hey everybody, it's Off the Floor here, and we got another episode of Books and Booze for you, the only 5-star rated show on the internet to talk about books and booze, hosted by me. So today we have a pretty special interview because the person that we're going to be interviewing today does a lot for the writing community, and I was really excited to have her want to take part in this show. Unfortunately, she gets my second episode, so it's probably still going to suck. And the 5 people that watch this are going to be happy. So that's all that matters. But we're going to talk about her new book. Got an ebook copy here, Sedona. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what she does for other writers with her show called Books and Bevies, or her little advertising thing called Books and Bevies. So let's get her on here. And Kerry Fryar Freeman, everybody.
Oh my gosh, that intro is amazing.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. First of all, I have to know what's in the glass. What's in the glass?
Tonight is, I'm just keeping it simple tonight. We're just going to do some Crown Royal Peach. It is quite the lovely drink. I was drinking bourbon last night and I overindulged a tad bit, so Tummy's still a little upset, so we'll keep it easy.
Nice.
So how are we doing today?
Doing really well. Excited to be on the show. I actually had some book mail that came in this week.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. that I heard that guy. He's pretty good. That's what I hear.
This guy is good. I'm loving this. I love Paul Dodge.
I appreciate it. We always appreciate anytime someone buys our books, especially when they're people who actually like to read books. So that's nice. But I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk. Let's talk about Sedona. Let's give me a quick rundown of what it is, what it's about.
All right. So Sedona, such a cool book. It's a modern reimagining of The Wizard of Oz. But unless you're really reading between the lines, you may not catch all the different little quirks that are a part of the storyline that match up with this classic tale. And so it's about a 20-some-year-old who moves to Sedona with her grandmother who has cancer in search for healing that has nothing to do with medicine. And while she's there, she meets this cast of characters who fill her life in different ways. And she stumbles upon a mystery at the job that she has, and her internal curiosity gets the best of her, and she kind of gets herself into a little bit of trouble. But I think something that I absolutely love about it is because you have such a classic tale with those specific like niche characters, you have a really good opportunity to see bits and pieces of yourself within the story. And it has a good message too, but I absolutely love the characters, which is my favorite thing about it. And of course the setting as well. So setting.
That's awesome. I lived in Phoenix twice, actually, so I know Sedona. So what made you decide to do this sort of retelling from the Wizard of Oz perspective in the background?
Right. Well, it was always a favorite when I was a kid, but I think I always wondered what it would be like if it happened today, and it couldn't be in the same unique way. The same way. It had to be something that was different, something that people could connect with. And so it would have to be a character that would just be taken out of, some place like the South, Atlanta, Georgia, and get put someplace that would feel very fish out of water and yet magical. And Sedona, it really is a super magical place where anything can happen. And people do tend to move there in waves, and they experience kind of this really neat presence of different people who end up finding their place there or end up staying there. So I think setting it in a place like that just seemed like a perfect location.
I like that. I like the aspect because obviously Dorothy was taken from somewhere and put somewhere else, and she was definitely a fish out of water in that world. Of course, everybody would have been, but I like the idea of the big city person. I mean, it's a story that's been told. Big city person goes to small town. They have all these things going on, trying to adjust. But I think that in your book, definitely throwing in that background, that green screen from Oz, gives it a new a new flavor that I don't think that's been seen before, and I think that's really cool. That's awesome. I'm really impressed with that.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, so, what is your writing process? I mean, I'm a pantser. That's what I do. I don't plot. I wrote my entire graduate thesis because I couldn't sleep. And I woke up I was laying there at 3 a.m. So I just decided to get up and write my entire thesis. And I had it done by like 5 p.m. the next day. I don't outline. I don't do anything. It's just how I am. So when I write my Paul Dodge novels, I have an idea of what I want the story to be. And I just sat down and start writing. How do you do it? Do you have a way to do it? Do you listen to music, or do you just do your thing?
Right. So I guess I'm a pantser too. I will say for the most part, I have to sit in chunks of time. I've heard, and I'm totally jealous of the authors who can sit there and do like bits and pieces in 15, 20 minutes. I can't do that because I get into the mind of my characters. But Stephen King kind of said it best, and you have to let the characters make their own decisions. That's how they
Yes.
become real. That's how they breathe. And I think that's what I love about the process is that I don't plan out, and I'm always surprised by where they go. And he also said, like, don't erase things. If they do something, you're like, oh my gosh, how in the world am I supposed to fix this? You're not supposed to fix it. Let the characters. And I think that's one thing that makes the plot believable and also something that people can get into. So, yeah, not an outliner. In fact, with Sedona, I had to put it down for 3 months towards the last 5 chapters because I had no idea what they were going to do. And my characters just stopped talking to me. And it was such a weird experience because I just sat quietly multiple times like, hello, what am I supposed to write next? And when it finally came to me, it was just, I had to get to my computer, I had to write it all down, and I was done. And so I don't know if you've had that experience too where they just kind of stall out. And I know people call it the writer's block, but I think it was more just me forcing them to do something, and they said,
Right.
no, we're going to figure it out on our own. So yeah, totally different experience.
When I write, which is why I'm always writing like 2 to 3 different books at the same time, because I will switch between them if I'm having a stall issue on one. And I agree with you. I really do think it happens when it happens 2 times. One, when I just have so much going on in my personal life that I just can't focus. And I know that's always a good time just to set back and take a break and sort some things out. And the other time is when I am trying to force too much on to Paul Dodge and move the story forward. So one of the first things I did was I just quit worrying about pacing. I quit worrying about all that. I just write. And I use Pro Writing Aid for my first round of edits. And they'll tell you if your pacing sucks. So
that's nice.
So when it says there's a pacing problem, I'll go back when I'm editing it and I'll reread it. And it's usually because I needed to insert some dialogue, or I was speaking in the past tense too much. They'll hit you on pacing on that. Yep. So I'll go in and I'll change those things, and I'll try to use more active verbs when that happens. But yeah, I agree 100%. And I mean, who am I to argue with Mr. King?
I know, seriously.
I mean, I have a real job and he gets to write all day. So
I know.
So I can't argue.
Yep.
So I heard that you had a pretty fun event a little while ago, and you have some special news.
I have some amazing news.
Let's hear it.
News, but this one's super amazing. So because of Books and Bevies and because of some connections, we were able to get Chad Henderson, who is this amazing head brewer at No Dog Brewing out of Charlotte. They're an international gold award winner for multiple beers. They agreed to do a special beer for Sedona and call it Whispering Pines. And I thought like I would just go in and, kind of the inaugural, like push a button and then the beer would just be made. But that is not what happened. I spent an entire brew day, and brew day is like 6 to 7 hours long. It's a big process into their large facility in Charlotte. And we did everything from putting the water inside of these massive vats to putting the actual hops in and the yeast. And it was an incredible experience all the way into the very end, where I got to actually take pictures of my lovely canister. And I actually got an update a couple of days ago from Chad, with all the bubbles inside of the beer, looking amazing. He said, "This is so good." So it's an IPA. It's a West Coast style IPA that's very bright. It has a lot of piney undertones, a little bit of tropical as well. Kind of akin to, I would say, kind of like their Hop Drop, which is their American IPA. And I have to say, if hopefully Chad will watch this, but this is Little Slurp, and this is Noda's kind of pride and joy. It was one of the first ones that they did some really cool experiments with, and so this is his favorite beer. So Chad, this is for you. But with the, I know, this is so good. But he said that this one kind of reminds him a little bit of that same kind of process that he put his beer through. So we're going to be releasing that, or tapping that, for the first time in Charlotte on November 10th. And we're going to have a pre-release party up there at that tap room. And then on November 17th, we will have it shipped down to Chapel Hill, and we'll do our actual book launch with that beer on tap, and have the time for everyone to be able to try it there too. So I'm super excited. It's such a neat thing for Books and Bevies to have an experience where you get to literally make your beverage that connects to your book. And so just a dream come true. Chad Henderson is just the best. And all the guys who work there and girls who work there at Noda were incredibly friendly, so chill. Yeah, just a really cool experience.
That is, that's awesome. When I first started writing, when I wrote the first novel, The Trust Misplaced, that you showed earlier, when I talked about my character, he's obviously has a what some people might consider a drinking problem. I would just say he's drinking bourbon. He's just drinking. I didn't get real specific about it. And then my wife's family, who are super supportive, and they buy all my books and they all read them. And they were like, they kept asking, what kind of bourbon is it? What kind of bourbon is he drinking? I need to know what kind of bourbon he's drinking. So in the second one, I started putting that in. I picked one, which in my case, it's Blanton's. And I started putting that in. I mean, he drinks other things as well, but when he's having one of his signature moments, that's what he'll go to. So to be able to do that, and you did two things here. One, you got a cool fucking beer with your book, and that's awesome. Two, you kicked ass on the marketing part. I mean, it is the absolute thing I hate the most about doing this is marketing.
Oh, marketing.
It's so, I hate it. So that's why I appreciate people like you who help us in very easy ways. It's very easy for me to take a picture of my book with some bottle or something. That's awesome, and it works so great for me, and I don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. It's fantastic. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And so for you to be able to do this and hook that up, I think that I think you're gonna hit it out of the park. I think that's really going to help you in the long run, and it's just fun, and they sound like good people, so it's kind of a win-win for everybody. You know what I mean?
It is, absolutely. And I have to give more props to my husband than anyone else, because he's the one who has connections, and he's such an amazing guy, and he's one who made a lot of this happen. And without him, I don't think I would be able to come up with half the stuff that I get to come up with.
That's good. That's
I'm sure
good.
You've experienced that too.
Yeah, somewhat. It's a little different in a Flory household, but it's not bad. It's different. My wife is actually gone right now, so she's traveling, so she's gonna be gone for a while. So everything's on me. But that is great. That you got people to help, and I usually I use my author community a lot, and I reach out to people a lot, and I ask them things, and I don't specifically ask them about my stories. I don't have beta readers. Do you use beta readers?
I do not. I mean, my beta readers are the people in my own.
I know people swear by them. I know they do.
I know.
I don't know. I just don't. I just write it, and then that's what I have an editor for. And my editor tells me if what I wrote sucks or not.
Yeah.
Then I change
you're
it.
lucky. You're lucky that you have an editor, and that's something that you can do. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when it comes to when my book is finished, and I say that, and you're the master in this. I'm basically an amateur for real. My second book, I just now got a literary agent for. It's the first time I've had a literary agent, and before though that I even got a literary agent, I did send it to some publishers, and they did give me really good feedback, and so. I don't mind the rejection and all that comes back when you first shop things, because I feel like it's free feedback. And so I would say for any author, I mean, spin it in a good way. At least you hear like this doesn't work or that doesn't work. And I've been fortunate that people have been really kind about giving feedback about things that need to change. So
I think that's a really good advice, because querying an agent can be daunting. Yes. And I don't have one. I made that choice. I went with an independent publisher, so I wouldn't have to do that. And I may do it, and I probably will do it in the future at some point. But I think that is a very good way to look at it. Use it as a positive experience. Look, nobody likes rejection. Rejection sucks.
It does.
We learned that as teenagers when you asked the person out that you liked and they laughed in your face. Nobody likes that. No. However, you can use it in a positive way, and I think using it for feedback like that is important. I think I've learned, and I don't know if you have, but even when everybody wants to give you feedback on your books. Everybody that reads your books wants to tell you something, and it's great. I like it from the perspective that if somebody's telling me something about a certain thing, that means they actually read it.
Yes.
And they paid attention. Yes. And that's good, because I've never read my books.
What?
I write them and I edit them, and I read them as I edit, but I've never sat down and read my own book. I don't know, it freaks me out. It's weird. So I've never done it. So sometimes people come up to me and like my coworkers, and they get all excited. They're like, "Oh man, on page 78, you said blah." And I'm like, "Oh yeah,
I did."
No idea what you're talking about. No idea at all. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was awesome." So yeah, I think I take a lot of the feedback to heart. Some of it I just ignore, because some of it is exactly where I wanted the story to go.
Right.
And it's how I wanted it to be. And because I let my character drive the story. And just because everybody doesn't have that. I had criticism on my last one, The Savior, from somebody, because they didn't like the ending. Didn't like it. Just like, I like my books to end in a certain way. Okay, cool. Good for you. That's great. Still rated me pretty well, but really didn't like the ending at all. But I don't care. That's where I wanted the ending to go.
Right.
Because I had something in mind later.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. And I think that is hard for authors to separate their own attachment to their work and hear that other feedback as if like, okay, I can take what I need to from this, and the rest of it, I can kind of set it aside. I mean, that's the creative ownership of what you have. Exactly. So that does take a certain level of thick skin to work through that.
You have to. And, and it's said a million times, and you're going to see it on your book. Hopefully you don't get any, but I feel like you're not even in the writing world unless you get a 1-star.
I'm waiting on that.
I got one. I didn't have any on my first 2. I got one on my new one. And it was actually, it did not finish. They only read 5 pages and gave me a 1-star. And it is what it is, but I don't comment on those. I don't comment on that stuff. It is what it is. Look, there's lots of books I don't like. I'm just not a dick about it. I just like, hey, this isn't really my thing. And if I'm going to give them a low rating, like if it's that bad, then I'm probably just not going to rate it.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. I can agree with that.
That's just me. But so once you get your 1-star, hopefully you don't, but I feel like when you do, you'll be in that club, and then we can really have like a 1-star drinking party.
All right. So that's going to be a little later.
Hopefully long time. Long time.
Not on Sedona. So I actually got to go to Sedona this summer for the first time. I'd
Hmm.
never been there until after I'd written the book because I
Hmm.
actually wrote it during the season of COVID,
Hmm.
um, based off of a screensaver that I saw. But when I actually got to go to Sedona, I was amazed by how much it affected me because
Hmm.
it really is a super magical place. And you've been there before.
Hmm.
But I don't know if you've heard this phrase, the Sedona synchronicities. Have you heard of that?
I have not. Do
This is
tell.
actually really cool. So, which I hadn't until it started happening while I was there. But when I was walking down the first day that we were there, walking down the street, I saw a car that had a bumper sticker that said "There's no place like home," and it had ruby slippers on it. I was like, "Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, Wizard of Oz! It's so weird." And I told my husband, like, "Look at that." He's like, "Okay, why are we excited?" I was super pumped. And then a little bit later that day, we went to Red Rock Crossing, where one of the vortexes are, to beach, and we were trying to find the vortex and came across this lady and her daughter, and we asked if they knew where it was. And their response was, "Follow the yellow brick road." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, did you just hear that?" My husband's like, yeah. So he was starting to get freaked out. I was like, "All right." And then this second day, we were going to lunch, and we went to Tlaquepaque, which is the little, the little shopping area. And there was a guy with an electric guitar. And after we sat down to eat, he started playing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." And
Hmm.
I was like, "This is insane." And so we finally we asked the waitress that was waiting on us, like, "This is so cool." And she said, "Oh no, it's not weird. This is what happens. It's called Sedona synchronicities. It's like the magic of Sedona." And I was like, "This is so neat for something like my book. And this is
Hmm.
something people talk about. You really are gonna love this book because it does have all these kind of magical undertones that for most of us who live in a world where we don't feel magic all the
Right.
time, we do want to say that's not real. Like you're just kind of making it up or you're in a fog or whatever. But then
Hmm.
when you experience it, you're like, maybe it is a little bit real. So that was a really cool experience, kind of being there for the first time. So I do encourage people that when they do read the book to jump into Sedona a little bit more because it's a really neat spot.
Hmm. Maybe I'll make a trip one day and I'll just take your book and I'll read your book when I'm out there all the
Yes.
way. And then
Yes.
I'll get like
You
all
get the
these
vibes.
vibes and feelings
Yes.
and I'll have to come back and talk to my therapist about it because it'll freak me out.
Or
But
you can talk about it there. You can go see a psychic, let them do the full reading.
all
Why not?
right, all right, I'm in. I'm sold. You sold me. Uh,
Awesome.
I'm excited. That's awesome. So what else have you got going on? I mean, are you working on anything new?
Yeah, well, the book that I finally gotten my final stuff to my literary agent is a book it's a little bit different than Sedona. It's a historical fiction, but it's a intergenerational saga that takes place in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, about this resort that in real life did disappear, and most people are wondering why it disappeared because it was massive. One of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest in North Carolina, bigger than like the Grove Park Inn or any of that. Kind of reminded me of like Biltmore. And so I made up a reason why it went away between this huge family that existed in my mind
Yeah.
and how they could have had something to do with its disappearance. And I'm very excited about that book. It's complex, like it's nuanced. So yeah, it's this amazing book that I think people will love. It has this mystery, but it also has a love story. It's a family, so there you do have a lot of like legacy. You have relationships. It's cool. It's one of those that when I finished writing it and sat down, I was like, oh my gosh, that just came like out of my spirit. It just happened.
That's
So very excited about that one.
cool. Cool. How many? I always ask, how many pages is that one?
That one,
I mean,
I
it's hard
don't.
to tell because you don't know until they actually get it in the
Yeah,
binding.
I
But
wouldn't. But
how
word
many
count,
words?
it's right around like right now, it's right around 87,000.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm sure it will drop through editing.
I have
You know,
found mine go up. Like the first one was like 72. The second one was 81. The third one was like 92.
yeah.
So I like to keep. I don't want to go any more than 100 for sure. But I would like to keep in that range. But I found as my the more I write, the better my writing skills
Yes.
become. And with that, the word count goes up because I
Yes.
start doing things differently. I start describing things a little more.
Yes.
Maybe tell a little backstory here and there that I wasn't telling before, just to add some more, clarity to what's going on or the character.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see if, as you continue writing, if your word count starts creeping up a little bit, or if you find a nice steady area where you say, you know what, I'm really good at like 81. And that's where I want to be.
That's probably what I'm good at. my third book I'm writing right now, it's really complicated, and so I feel like it's probably going to go up because it has a back and forth of a now and then, and then it has these like news articles that happen between, and then there's like a person's perspective that's also happening. So it's a nice little like 4-part situation that moves, but then every single part has so much to say. So I'm noticing for that one that it is definitely trending to be longer. And I'm really excited about that one. That's what I'm writing right now. And it is so good. Super creepy, very creepy. Also takes place in North Carolina. I guess because I live in North Carolina, I do that.
No, it's yeah.
Normal.
It makes perfect sense. Now, are you a third or first? Third or first person?
Oh, third person. I mean, I have a first person perspective in my third book, but everything else has been third person.
Okay, good. I am too. I'm writing one in first person because I feel I needed to do that. But overall, I'm typically a third person writer. But I felt like I needed to do it just to hone my author skills and try it. Plus, I'm writing an unrelated, like just creepy thriller kind of thing, and it did work out to do in first person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think for me, that kind of a story was easier to write because I can bring my own like fears into it, and I can say me, I, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, is there anything else that you want to tell us? Is there anything else going on?
I mean, other than Books and Bevies, just the fact that we're still, it's all free. And the main goal is to help authors to get noticed and to get out there. And our community is growing. So I can tell that people are liking, sharing, putting it more out there. So for any authors who are interested, I don't say no. If anything, I give feedback of things that we can do to make it happen. And I just love being able to support. So even though I have had those New York Times bestseller cases, kind of like I love the indie, the self-published, because those are the ones that I really want to help to bring up to a place where people can get noticed. And those are the people who I've become friends with. Like you said, that's your community. Those are the people that you actually reach out to and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think if I try this? And they're the ones who I feel comfortable getting feedback from. So absolutely love that Books and Bevies community.
Well, I got to tell you that I think it's fantastic, and you're one of the reasons that I do some of the things that I do, just because I want to help out people like that as well, because we don't have the big marketing budgets, and the more eyes you can get on your product, the better off you're going to be. So I try my best to help people do that, and I only know how to do it one way. That's take their book and pair it with booze, because that's what I do.
I love it.
So that's why we go that way. Well, I really appreciate everything you do for the writing community, and I really appreciate you being on today. And everybody, go out, get a copy of Sedona. Let's get her on the charts. Let's get her on the lists. Look at that right there. I love that cover, the glasses, the stuff. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And let's see if we can say that Books and Booze made her a New York Times bestseller. I mean, I'll take the credit. I'm not.
I will give you credit. How about that?
Well, it was great having you on, and I appreciate everything you do, and good luck in the future. And hey, I hope this new book, you have to let us know when it comes out, and I hope I know it's going to be good because this one's good. So
thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
No problem.